Hi guys, welcome to Angular tutorial, and in this video I'm going to discuss about what is observable in Angular. So today's question is, what is observable in Angular? When you check the Angular code using observable, you got confused. For example, this is the code where observable has been used. So this is not the only place. You will see at many places Angular uses this observable, and I've seen that most of the newbie the Angular developers get confused. To understand observable, you also might have tried to read internet articles, but the result is confusion. To understand observable, you might have also tried to watch videos, but still the result is confusion, because there are many aspects in this observable which needs to be understood. Observable itself is a class. Inside that there are different methods which also works along with that. So because of these things, most of the developers, particularly the developers who have just started understanding Angular, they get confused. So in this video I have tried to explain this with example and step by step, so that you can understand what observable is all about. And remember, in interview this observable related questions is asked, so that is why you must understand this observable. And also in Angular, while working on Angular, particularly in services part, you will see Angular heavily uses this observable, so it is necessary that you understand it properly. So the question remains, what is observable in Angular? So let's try to understand it. So I have prepared some points regarding that. The first one is, observable is a class of RxJS library. So what is observable? Observable is a class of RxJS library. So what is this RxJS? RxJS is actually a library of JavaScript. The second point is, observables provide support for passing messages between publisher and subscriber in any application. Remember, this second point is very important, and this second point I have directly taken from Angular's official website. So let's watch it carefully. So what is this? Observable provide support for passing messages between publishers and subscriber in any application. So you can understand that observable is a class, but it is more of like a pipe string. So the message is sent from the creator, the publisher, and the message is received by subscribers. So that is the main concept, that is the ultimate concept of this observable. So observable consists of two parts. The one is creator and the other one is consumer. And the third point is, observables provides support for event handling, also asynchronous programming and handling multiple values. So let's understand these things also. Observables actually is nothing but, as I mentioned before, the pipe stream which receives asynchronous data. Okay, it receives asynchronous data through HTTP return. So HTTP client, which is new in after Angular 5, so this HTTP client returns observable. Okay, so that observable is asynchronous, it is not synchronous. And also observable can return more than one value. As I mentioned before, that observable consists of several methods. Observable itself is a class, and it consists of, it has different methods. So one of the important method is this subscribe, which you will always use. Then second one is map, merge map, switch map, exhaust map, depends time of retry, catch, throw, etc. So all these I will discuss about all these things, all these methods later in this video, or maybe in the next video. So that you will understand that what this method is all about and why we will use this method. And somewhere or the other, while working on Angular, you might have seen a few of these methods. Fourth important point is observables are not executed. Observables are not executed until it is subscribed. As I mentioned before, that it consists of two parts. The first one is creator and the second one is the subscriber. So if creator has created something but subscriber has not subscribed, in that case observable will be of no use, and the data created inside of observable will always stay there. It will be of no use. So it must be subscribed, only then the data of observable can be consumed or subscribed. So let's see the first point, this one. Observable is a class of RxJS library. Now the question is, what is RxJS? Observable is a class of RxJS library. I've already mentioned that observable is a class of RxJS library. So RxJS is a reactive X library for JavaScript. RxJS is a reactive X library for JavaScript that performs reactive programming. Now the question is, in your mind, that what is reactive programming? The reactive programming is a software model in which asynchronous data stream is dealt with. So in short, you can say that this in reactive programming, asynchronous data is taken, or it is received and sent. So that's the reactive programming. So reactive programming is related to asynchronous data streams. And as I mentioned before, that observable is nothing but collection of asynchronous data, and observable also take care of this asynchronous data, which I will show you through illustration. Now the second point is, observables provide support for passing messages between publishers and subscriber in any application. To understand it better, let's take help of this illustration. Let's take example of Time magazine. So in Time magazine, there are different journalists. Those journalists collect data from different cities, and then they send to the main house, to the office, so that it can be formatted, and then a magazine can be printed. So the first one is the journalist. As I mentioned before, that the journalist will send data to magazine house, and then there are different people who will subscribe to the magazine. There are different people who will subscribe this magazine, so that on monthly basis they can receive this magazine. But out of them, there are also few other guys, other people who has not subscribed. So understand it properly. As you can see, the first one is journalist. So that is a kind of data source. Data is flowing inside a magazine house through this journalist, and ultimately this magazine is printed inside the magazine house, is printing house, and then after printing it is sent to the subscriber, and it is not sent to the people who has not subscribed. So let's proceed ahead. So in this illustration you can see that journalist sends data, for example, from Canada, China, India, UK, Australia or Russia to the main magazine house. Now the data can be of different format. Maybe the journalist who is sitting in Canada is sending the input through email, and the people sitting in China, the journalist sitting in China, prefer to send through hard copy, and the journalist sitting in India also is sending through email. The UK is sending, the journalist sitting in the UK is also sending hard copy. Australia is sending WhatsApp, and Russia, the journalist sitting in Russia is sending through WhatsApp. So here you can see that the data is coming in a varied format, not in a single format. Now understand it properly. Now just imagine this: if magazine house, now the received data is, the magazine house has the received data in three formats, right? Email, unformatted hard copy, and WhatsApp. So in three formats this magazine house has received data from its journalist. Then the question is, will the magazine house, will the magazine company will send the data as it is to the customer? No, not at all, because the magazine house will receive the data in varied format, and then it will format the data and print properly, then it will send to the customer, to the consumer, to the people who have subscribed. So what will magazine house do? It will arrange it in proper title. For example, Trump has become president of USA, so that will be the title, and then there will be story inside that. So there will be photograph maybe. So in short, the magazine house, the publisher of the magazine, the people who take care of this magazine printing will arrange, the maybe editor also will arrange it in proper format. Remember, here the magazine house will receive data in different format, through WhatsApp, through hard copy, through email, but ultimately it will collect and process, and then it will take care of, and then ultimately it will arrange data in proper readable format. Okay, so it will be like title, proper printing, proper content. Okay, now so this is the summary. So far you have seen this in illustration. So how does it work? So it works like this: journalist sends data, the journalist sends data to magazine house in different format, and then the workers, the staffs of magazine house, collected the data and format it in proper format and create a magazine. So it properly create title, it create proper printing, as well as it creates a proper content, and then the magazine is sent to the people, only people who have subscribed. Now let's see the right side. Here this one is data source, the journalist, right? And here in case of Angular, our data source is API, the database API. Okay, and then here the magazine house receives the data, and here in this case HTTP response, HTTP client receives the data, and then here the main task of observable starts. So observable receives data in raw format, In first example, you have seen that it received in email hard copy in WhatsApp format. So also observable type stream receives data which is not in array format, which is not in proper format. Okay, so what is the task of observable? Observable monitors, checks it, and arranges data in proper format. So that is the actual work of observable. So the task of observable is to receive asynchronous data in improper format, in a raw format, and then the task of observable is after receiving it will make proper format in array format, and it will send it to the consuming TS file. Now, before proceeding ahead, let's understand that how service work in Angular. So users interact with the HTML component, right? For example, list.component. So there is a button, so list, so users list. Okay, when you click on this HTML button list, then the data is a message is sent to list.ts. Maybe there will be a function inside list.ts saying that display, and then list, inside list it subscribe data of service. That means it sends a signal to service asking for the data, and ultimately the service through HTTP request sends a request through HTTP client. It sends request to database API, and then database API listens to the request of HTTP request, the HTTP client, and then it returns unformatted asynchronous data. And then here the task of observable start. Observable is itself, so in short you can say that the database API returns observable. It returns observable. That means it is in improper format. And then the task of observable starts here. So it's observable formats the data in array format. This is important. Observable receives the data and it provides in proper format, and then again it sends back to service, and then service returns to a list.ts file, and then list.ts file ultimately returns to HTML, and user ultimately see the updated data. So this is the detailed illustration of how the service in Angular work. And also you have seen here the role of observable, that how observable works in Angular. In the below example, in the next slide, we are going to make the category function return an observable, which the app.component will subscribe like so. So here, first of all, to use observable, as I mentioned before, that observable is class of RxJS library, so you need to import here first. Here, observable from RxJS. You need to import that first, and then here will be some other code, but ultimately here, suppose you are searching, you have created a function called search here, right? You have created a function inside service. So inside service you have created a function called search, and then here is a just a variable with data type is string, and here through HTTP HTTP request, it is sending signal to database API, right? So the return type here is observable categories. So as you know that every function has some return type. For example, if you write in TS file, you may have written like this. Display and then void, right? Void. Display maybe here ID number and then void, and here is some code. So what is this void? The void is actually the data type, right? So when you don't know the return type, then simply write void. But here in this case we know that the HTTP request will return observable. So the return type of this search function is observable. Okay, the return type of this search function is observable here. Okay, and as you know, the observable task I have already discussed about in the same video previously, that how observable works and what is the task of observable. The task of observable is to receive data from here HTTP request, and then it will arrange in proper format. So what is in which format? In array format. It will arrange in array format, and this array format will return back to the TS file. So understand here once again that this is our function, and this whole thing is the return type. So in place of void here, in place of void, you are writing here this complete. This is the return type. The return is observable. So as mentioned before, the return type is observable category. It's going to return an observable where each item in the observable is categories. So each item is this one, categories, the array list. Each item in the observable is going to be an array. Each item in the observable is going to arrays of categories. So far I hope that you might have understand that how this observable works and how services work, and also how services and this observable is really interrelated, and how this observable pipe streams filters the data and returns back to the TS file. So I will show you through practical example so that you will have, and I'll also compare you through my illustration so that you will have better understanding that how that actually works. So thanks for watching, and I will explain that, I will discuss that in the next video. So stay connected and see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.